Hey guys, what's up? This is Jen Frost with Faith and Fabric, and I am excited today to share a product with you that has really helped me organize my quilts. Now, I'm not talking about my quilts in my quilting studio. I'll pop a link up here so you can see the studio itself and how I organize my quilts once they're done. I'm talking more about how to organize quilts from concept all the way through completion. So all those papers, those ideas, those fabric swatches, the colors, you end up probably with that stuff all over your quilting space, just like I do. And I'm really excited because I found a way around that, and that's what I want to share with you today. So the tool that I have found to really organize all those little bits and pieces is this really awesome book by Shannon Gilman-Orr. You'll see this is called Plan to Quilt. And what this is a planner specifically for your quilts from concept through fabric swatches, through printing out the patterns, all of those little tiny pieces that probably end up on Post-it notes, because that's how they end up for me, all go in one central location. Now this is an undated planner, which is wonderful because since there's no dates in it, you don't have to worry about sticking to like, this is what I do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. This is undated and it's really organized by the quilt project itself. So in a minute, we're gonna go take a look at what's actually inside, but I wanna show you the outside of this book first. So I'm gonna actually switch sides here. We'll bring this a little closer to the camera. You can see this is a beautiful hardcover book. It's got a nice spiral binding. So what that means is it's gonna open up very easy for you when you want to flip through the pages. So for example, you can see if you wanna open up, you wanna get to a page, it's nice and easy, it's portable. I can throw this in my backpack. I've got a nice little mom bag I carry everywhere with me. And this is often in there because it's just a great way to organize and keep all those pieces together. So you see on the back here, it's got a little bit of information about the quilt itself. There's 42 different ways to plan. And we're gonna take a look, not at all 42 of those, but we're gonna take a look at the way we can organize this at the cutting table. Let's head over there now. Let's take a look inside. So here's the book. You can see, I think it's just so pretty. It's got a nice white cover. So it's not nice, super dark. I like that about it. When you open it up to the first page here, there's a nice welcome letter from Shannon kind of explaining how to use the book. And that's what I'm gonna walk you through today. So we're gonna bypass her instructions and we're gonna get into the meat of the book. Now I flagged a couple pages I really wanna show you, but we're just gonna kind of do a nice walkthrough. So the first section she has are fabric wish lists. And this is nice. So if there's certain fabric designers that you want to work with or that you want to make sure you pick up some of their fabrics, you can list them here. Obviously, I love anything Tulip Pink, so I don't have a specific collection of hers that I want. I also really like Me and My Sister, and I'm using their Cherry Picnic fabric line in our Free Motion Fridays. I'll actually pop a link up here to our Free Motion Fridays so you can take a look at those and see that fabric line. But you can see I was able to know that I wanted it, and once I found it, I marked it off. There's also a whole page for patterns. So if there's a pattern designer that you like or a pattern you want to make, you can actually keep track of those here. Now, since I do a lot of my own patterns, that section is not as relevant for me, but it's definitely something that if you have certain pattern designers that you want to make sure that you're following or that you want to make sure that you know that you have that listed, you can use this page here. So let's get into the bulk of the book. So the first section that I really love is the project checklist. Now this is where there's over 40 lists on here. So you've got a set of over 20 on this page, and then when you turn the page, another set of 20 here. And each one of these projects is color coded. So the color codes are actually gonna tie all the way through the book. We'll take a look at that in a minute. But you're gonna start off by, starting, for example, with your number one. You list your name of your quilt. For example, I made a quilt called Morning Glory. You list when is it due, how important is the priority, and then it's got all these different check boxes for you to keep track of. So I'm gonna read them off to you. So there's the pattern, supplies, did you cut it, did you piece it, did you press it, is it finished, did you get the batting, is it quilted, is it bound, and then I added another one, did I share that, because that's what applies to me. I wanna make sure that I remember to share it online. So you can completely check off the stages. So you'll see I've actually been able to complete 4 different quilts. I've got 7 on here right now. I just started this in January. So I've got 4 different quilts that I've already made and used this book. And you guys, this has been huge for me to be able to organize my quilts. I'm gonna show you these. I use these little colored markers. These are by Pilot. They're the Friction pens. And I love them because number one, they're colorful. But number two, they erase. So I'm going to show you that real quick. So for example, if I was working on my love notes and I was like, gosh, you know, I don't think February 1st was the day that I needed that due. I wanted it due by February 14th. You know, you can fill that on here. They write wonderfully. But if I change my mind and I didn't want to do that, you'll see I can erase the 2 and say, okay, I really want this to be due in by January 14th, so I have enough time to share it. You can see these pens erased. So not as much to do with the pattern, but I just think these are super fun. I'll be sure to put a link to these in the comments below. Okay, so we've got our checklist for all of our projects. There's also a shopping list. So you may find that you have to do a lot of shopping for your quilts. This is where the colors come in really handy. So you'll see this is a very dark magenta for my first project. So here's that same dark magenta. That color is gonna follow all the way through. And you'll see over here, you can list the name of your quilt, Morning Glory, and you can put any materials you might need to shop. Now I have a really big fabric stash and a lot of threads, so I don't have to do as much shopping. So I was able just to pull from my stash actually for most of my quilts, but this is a great place where you can keep track of all those materials you need and then just take your book with you when you hit the fabric shop. So let's take a look at that Morning Glory quilt. So you'll see when I turn the page here, again, these pages are all just more lists for your shopping and your needs. That same dark maroon is going to follow us through. So it's very easy to find your quilts. So here's my main project page. You'll see here's my quilt. This is my #1 quilt that I was working on. You can list how difficult it was. For me, this was a 2. There's a lot of curves I had to work with. This actually was a quilt I worked on from Cynthia White. This was that New York Beauty quilt over here. You'll see here some photos. So you're able to list the pattern name. You can list how big it is when it's finished. I actually forgot to fill that in here. A recipient, I gave this one away. Why are you making it? You can list the colors that you're thinking of. So, you know, I wanted to do this kind of like a more Americana feel with the reds and the whites and make it look like a sunshine. So I was able to test some colors out. And then you can actually put your fabric swatches in here. How cool is that? And what I love about this is you have this record now of after your quilt is made of which fabrics did you use? Not just writing down the names of the fabric designers, but the actual pieces, which is great. Besides each one of the quilt planning pages, there's a blank page. And this page is for, you know, whatever purpose you want. It's suggested that you put the finished pictures of your quilt, which I really like because there's so many times I'll make a quilt and I give it away and I don't have a record of that anymore. So now you can see I've got the quilt that I've made, all the details of it, and I've got some finished photos of that quilt that I've made. Actually, I'll put a link up here to how we made the curves on this quilt too. That was a really fun technique. So you'll see I'm going to continue working in the same quilt. You'll see you can tell you're in the same quilt because again, you've got those same color borders. Here's a space where you can practice your block design. So you'll see what I did here is I was able to sketch out. So if this was the block, this was Cynthia's block down here, I wanted to really play with that negative space. So I was able to kind of see how much space did I want. And you can't really see the lines as much, but there's a lot of erasure marks where there were times where I had this sunshine a lot bigger or a lot smaller, depending on that negative space. So you have an opportunity to really sketch out your design. There's a blank notes page, should you need some blank notes that you want to keep track of. And then your last pages for that quilt are going to be your notes. So I've got some notes. I was making notes on the fabrics that I was using. You know, they're jewel tone fabrics that I got from my mother-in-law for Christmas. You know, I did make a note that I used white binding. We'll turn back to that. You can see I put a white binding all the way around it, and I made a note that I'm not sure if I like white binding, so that's a good tip for me to remember going forward. I made a note that there was a blog hop that I was participating in, so I've got all my dates in one spot. And then what I really like is you can keep track of your quilt's story. Why did you even make this quilt in the first place? Which I think is just a beautiful reason, because these are those fun facts, right, you guys, that you have that you're probably going to forget. Let's take a look at one more. So this was a quilt that I made. You'll see, I'll put a picture over here and we'll put a link up here to our love notes. So this was a really fun little St. Valentine's Day quilt that I made, inspired by the letters from St. Paul for all the little love notes that he wrote. So again, you're able to keep track of your quilt. We'll go back over here real quick, put some tabs in here so I wouldn't have to flip around too much on you. So here's my second quilt, and this is a little bit more of like a burned red color, so you can see our colors have changed. So now I'm on quilt 2. Again, you keep track of the colors you want to use. Here's the actual fabrics you can use. There's plenty of space in here where you can actually write down where your fabrics come from. So you see I had some Bernartex, I've got some bread and butter fabrics, some Riley Blake. Then I've just got a couple scraps that I had from Unknown. I don't know where those came from. Like I said, I have way too much fabric, but you can keep track of your threads. Again, here's my finished photos of my quilt. I got a nice up-close photo. I've got a quilt, I turned it into a pillow. Here's the pillow link on how we did that. But you can see, again, just being able to keep track of those pictures is wonderful. Again, here's the sketch I made. So I was able to kind of sketch out the idea before I finished it. And this time I used that blank notes page to hold the pattern pieces. So I just glued an envelope in here, and inside I've got all of the paper piecing pieces because I'm actually going to make another one of these. So when I printed the pattern out, I printed 2 copies, and now my pieces are always going to be together. And this is great, honestly, because if you had an actual pattern that you wanted to keep in one place, you can put it in here, and then you don't have to worry about losing anything. You know, all of my pattern pieces are kept in one spot. Again, I've got my notes and my quilt story. So here's one more that I thought we can take a look at. So here's a quilt I just finished up. This is our Snowball Saints. I'm not done with this video, but I'll put the link up here as soon as I'm done with it. This is the quilt that we've been working on for showcasing our little saints. So let's take a look actually at the Snowball Saints quilt so you know what I'm talking about. It'll probably help when we're looking at the book. This is the Snowball Saints quilt. So these are little tiny, these are little tiny snowball blocks. I'll bring this a little closer. Switch sides here. These are little snowball blocks with little tiny saints inside of them. So this comes from a fabric panel. I'll stick the link below. But I just thought it would be nicer to have a frame of reference on what a Snowball Saint quilt is as we look in the book. So you'll see when I was working on this one, again, the same similar. So this is quilt pattern number 6. If we go back to the beginning here, you can see this is the 6th pattern we're working on. I have 2 alternate layouts, but this is the first of the 2. Here's some of those fabrics we just saw. You can see here's the final picture we just looked at. Here's how I kept track of all the little blocks. You know, I was sketching this one out, and so here's all how many blocks I needed, how many I would need to make. Here's the fabric swatches that I was needing. I've got all of my little notes. Here's the designs of all the saints. And again, I'm able to keep track of my notes that I want to keep on the quilt. So what is the unfinished border? What do I need to add? And then the story as to why I made this quilt. So there you go. That's how I use my Plan to Quilt book. And honestly, for me, like I said, this has been a real game changer because I tended to have little Post-it notes everywhere, scrap pieces of paper everywhere. And now I don't. You know, it was definitely a little bit of a behavior change. I had to really force myself, maybe the first week or two, to say, no, don't just jot that down. Like, go get your book, go get your book. And now it's just become habit. I've got even more quilts in here than I showed you on the front page because a lot of those are just still concepts that I'm working through. But it's been so nice to have everything in one place where I know I'm not losing things. So when I do get those little fabric swatches, or I do find, oh my gosh, this is just the right color or just the right inspiration for something, I can put all those pieces of paper, all those little scrap ideas in one place, and I'm not losing them anymore. It also serves as a great reminder of ideas. So, you know, sometimes you finish up a project and you're like, okay, what should I go to next? I can pull this out and I can take a look at that list and I can see, oh yeah, that's right, I wanted to work on this, or oh, this is the next one from a priority perspective because you've used the priority feature in there. You can see what has to happen next. What is the next most important place for you to be focusing that attention? So just honestly, staying organized has been huge. You know, I really like to how we talked about how there's no dates in here. You know, I have a planner that I use for my day-to-day, you know, making sure I get projects done on time, making sure I get bills paid, making sure I remember important days of my son's school. But that's more my day-to-day planning. This is really, again, more for those concepts, those ideas, and honestly, for that story behind when you're done, why you did what you did. I feel like this is going to be one of those resources now in, say, 4 or 5 years, even once you're done, right? So say I use up all 42 of my quilt projects and now I'm on my 2nd book, right? Because I'm probably going to just keep doing this. I love the way these books work. I'll be able to go back and see like, wow, look at how much I've done. Look at how much progress I've made. And look at how much I've changed just as my quilts have grown over time, because you as a quilter, you're going to change too. And you'll have that rich history to always reflect back on. You'll have those stories written down in here on why you did things. So this is just something I love. It's definitely a part of my everyday practice now. And I hope you guys like it too. In the link below, I'm actually going to pop a coupon code that you can use to get a discount on your book if you're interested. I think these are just wonderful tools that you can start to use going forward. And I look forward to hearing in the comments how you guys use your book. So good luck, happy sewing, enjoy your plan to quilt, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care.